Something I've learned from firsthand experience over the past few years is that you don't actually achieve new results by remaining the same person you've always been. And when I started to understand this, it's when things in my life and my business really started to shift. Achieving new results in any area, whether it's our business, our relationships, our health and fitness, really starts by changing you, by changing your thoughts, your mindset, and actually your identity. And so I want to talk a little bit about this today because it's been so huge in my own journey, and I think you're going to find a lot of value in this conversation. Welcome back to the show. I wanted to take a second and just say welcome. For those of you who might be new, if this is your first time tuning in, I'm just so grateful that you're here. And if you're returning and you've listened to the podcast, you're an OG listener from the beginning, I'm so glad you're here too. You know, it's never lost on me that real human beings are on the other side of this audio. I've gotten some cool messages lately just from people who are taking what we talk about on the podcast and applying it, and that never gets old. So if we're not already connected on Instagram, you can connect with Powerhouse Women, which is just at Powerhouse_women. And then Lindsay Schwartz is me personally. I do run my own social media, and I'm going to put links in the show notes so that we can actually get connected. Because I don't know about you, but when I listen to podcasts, I start to feel like those people are my friends. And something you should know about me is that I actually do want to connect with you. I do want to be your friend. I want to make an actual connection, hear how the podcast is impacting you, what you want to hear next. This show is all about you. So make sure we're connected, use the links in the show notes, and let's make this official. But today I wanted to talk a little bit more on the mindset and personal development side of things, because when we talk about getting out of our own way, that whole theme within the Powerhouse Women community really started from my personal experience. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only one who gets in my own way, but I was recently on a podcast. I was being interviewed for someone else's podcast, and it brought me back to the beginning of this journey and really what inspired me to take those first initial steps to write the book Powerhouse Woman, to start the Powerhouse Women event. And so much of this has been inspired by my own journey and really my own version of getting in my own way. And what it looked like for me back then was I was doing things on the surface that probably looked like I had a great highlight reel of success. So I had started a health and wellness business, left my corporate job to pursue that full time, and was doing well in terms of success or, monetary results. I was really fulfilled, but I felt deep down like there was more. And what people couldn't see from the outside was that I was operating at maybe 70% of my potential. And I could do that because I knew that operating at 70% of my potential looked like some other people's 100%. Meaning I could put in about 70%, not really risk anything. I could still be pretty comfortable, and I could achieve results. I didn't have to try that hard in the areas that I was, trying to achieve results in. And that 70% would get me what, could look like 100. But at the end of the day, that started to really wear on me because I did feel like there was more, but I was so willing, or I should say, I was so unwilling to get uncomfortable, to risk failure, or to step out and actually take an action without having this complete and perfect plan laid out in front of me. And I think that it could have been really, really easy to stay in that mode. It could have been easy to continue doing the things that I already knew how to do and felt, comfortable in some sense because, I was making money. I was getting recognition. It could have been very, very easy to stay there, but something in me just would not let me rest on that. there was just something that like I think would have continued to eat away at me. And it started to show up as frustration. It started to show up as I was just restless. So I knew that something had to give. And honestly, nothing changed until I got really sick of staying in that same place. Until I got really sick of, waking up every day and knowing that I knew deep down, no matter what anyone else thought, that I wasn't fully playing at my full potential. And it wasn't until I started to do things that felt really, really freaking uncomfortable that anything started to change. And I just want to pause here and like actually have you take a look for yourself. Are you feeling kind of complacent? Are you feeling restless? Are you feeling like, gosh, there's more for me? Or you look around at what other people are achieving and you're like, I feel like I should be doing that. I feel like I should be building my own business, or maybe achieving a certain result in your health and fitness. Or maybe it's so much subtler than that. It's just how you want to feel. You want to wake up every day and feel like you're on purpose. And I see this so often because I look back at my own journey, but then it's very easy since I've been there and I still catch myself sometimes operating in that mode. It's really easy for me to see when maybe other people around me are too. And what I see so often, specifically in the women I've been connecting with recently who are building businesses, and they've actually got something that looks really great on the surface, but they know they're meant for more. And they keep operating in the same way, meaning thinking the same thoughts, taking the same actions, and just thinking that, okay, if I just do more, that's going to get me a new result. And while it will incrementally, if you put in more effort, chances are you'll probably produce more results. But for me, at least, where the exponential results have actually come from are by working more on changing like the actual core of my identity. So actually working on becoming a new version of myself, totally changing the way I look at things, the way I see things, and changing the way I look at myself and my business is what has led to some of the huge leaps and bounds that have happened. If you've watched Powerhouse women grow over the last 3 years, on the surface, like it looks pretty cool, like it's grown and evolved really quickly. But what people don't see is that on the inside, I've actually invested to super uncomfortable levels on growing myself and how I see myself, how I approach business, my own financial mindset, my own abundance mentality. There's so many things that have gone into it, that it's not that I just kept going to, waking up every day and going to work on the same things and just putting in more effort. I tried that for years and it actually produced very incremental, small results. I had to realize that I couldn't really achieve something new, like totally new, blowing my own mind kind of results by remaining the exact same person that had gotten me to where I was currently at. And that was tough. As someone who is really, really attached to her comfort zone, it was not fun to take those initial scary steps out. But some of the initial first things that I did, if I just look back, were usually things that felt kind of scary, but I also felt really drawn to them and I couldn't always explain why. So things like going to personal development events and not just going and sitting there as like a passive bystander, but actually being willing to look at things that felt uncomfortable, deep-rooted habits and patterns or ways of thinking that were limiting me. Or things like, I've talked about this a ton on the podcast, investing in myself, actually investing in putting myself into environments and around people who challenged me to level up. That's been a huge catalyst for changing the way I see myself, like actually changing the person that I am. And then I would say the last one is setting big goals. And a lot of times I've needed accountability to even set these big goals. It's not comfortable for me to just do this on my own, but setting goals that literally force me to become a different person in the process. So I'm going to give you an example of this. As Powerhouse Women as an event has grown. Every year it's doubled. It's almost doubled in size. So the first year we had 100 people, then we had about 175. Last year, our third year, we had over 300 people. And so this year, I started thinking about the number 500. Like that just felt to me like what I could see happening, and based on how this community is growing, like our amazing podcast audience, so many of you I know are going to make the trip to Arizona and plug in and get to like become a real part of this girl gang. And I realized that, so I was comfortable with a certain incremental growth. That 500 for me felt like the natural next step. And it would actually just require me to keep doing what I always knew to do in order to grow this event and like really pour into this community. And then it was actually as a part of like being in a mastermind, which, I always do what I encourage you to do. I'm always in a mastermind. I started to think about, wow, okay, that goal actually doesn't stretch me to the point that I have to become a new person. I actually have to think outside of what I already know to do. And so I remember getting the quote back from our venue and seeing that the room was big enough to hold it was something like 1,000 people. And something kind of like, in me, something in my, I don't know, it was my gut or my heart, some part, between the two was like, okay, you need to set your sights bigger. You just need to think bigger. And to me, it actually doesn't matter. The number doesn't mean anything about me personally. It's not like my identity or I suck if I don't hit this number. So I set this goal, and I'll share what it is, based on that it made me uncomfortable because I would have to think so differently than how I normally think. So, 500 felt kind of like, okay, I think we could do that. So instead, I set the goal of 750. So I share this. The reason I share this is because, these goals are not about anything other than exactly what this topic and this conversation today is all about. That if you're setting a goal that like you can pretty easily see your way to, you're probably not thinking big enough. And the challenge with not thinking big enough to force us to grow has nothing to do with the additional money you can make, has nothing to do with any of that. It's completely about the person that you get to become in the process, how you get to see yourself, and the bigger impact that you could make. Sometimes that's not even on like serving more people or making more money. It's the way you view yourself changes, and that changes how you show up in your relationships. It changes how you show up for the people that you serve. And at the end of the day, it changes the person that you go to bed, with yourself. And there might be someone else you go to bed with. That's none of my business. But it changes the way that you see yourself and what you're capable of. So I want to hear what you are going to do this year to shift your identity. How you are going to make sure that you don't remain the same person that you've been, and how you're going to achieve those new results by becoming a different person. So the best way to connect is, like I said, on Instagram. If we're not already connected there, I would love to hear from you. You can obviously plug into our Facebook community. The link for that is in the show notes as well. But I really want to be more intentional this year with connecting with our audience on the gram. That's my favorite place to hang out right now. So make sure that you take a screenshot, share this episode. Let me know. Let's hold each other accountable. What are you going to do to make sure that you don't go into the next year as the same person that you've been? And some of my favorite ways to do that, again, get into an event, invest in yourself in some way, or set a big freaking goal that actually challenges you to become a new version of yourself. So I'm going to wrap up by just sharing that this is actually one of the biggest reasons why we have created our business mentorship and mastermind. So if you haven't already heard about this, you can actually go to powerhousewomen.co/mentorship, and you can read all the details. It says what the investment is, what's all included. But I actually just want to share this, that, sometimes when we're ready to level up, whether we realize it or not, we're given opportunities. There's opportunities all around us. Something like this could be the perfect opportunity if you're at this point where maybe you resonated with what I said, like you've actually achieved success, but there's more for you, and you're ready to put yourself in an environment that's going to force you to grow, right? You're ready to put yourself around a mentor who's going to make you seriously look at how high you're setting the bar for yourself. So this experience is designed to create that exact kind of environment for you. And for those of you who know you're seriously ready to level up in your business this year, by the time this airs, I'm not sure exactly how many spots we'll have left. We right now have just a handful. It's over half full because we're going to keep this really intimate. We're going to keep it really super hands-on so that we can move the needle, like actually move the needle in your business. And this is really for those of you who already know exactly what you're monetizing. And maybe you are at the point that this is your year. You're ready to break through that ceiling of 6 figures. Or if you're already at 6, then we're going to double that, because I know the value of what can happen when you set a goal that you don't totally know how to achieve based on the person that you've been. Because going back to the whole point of today's episode, it's going to force you to become someone that you haven't been yet. And that person is the one that's going to seriously change the world. So let me know if you have questions about it. You can actually book a call directly with me on the website. Again, it's linked in the show notes if you want to learn more, but do not wait, because this program is going to be full by the end of the month, and we're going to get started right away in March. So don't wait. If you know this is your year, now is the time. Okay, I can't wait to connect with you. Hit me up on Instagram. I want to know what you got from today's episode and what you are going to do to achieve new results by becoming a new version of yourself.